Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We were just told by our director that it is 6:30 and a regularly scheduled meeting of the Sunderland Board of Selectmen is about to begin.
We are right on time, Scott.
Pretty
Look
close.
at that.
Prior to our kicking off, we were getting an update on the West Wing. We have a relatively light agenda tonight. We're going to talk about minutes from the 4th. I think there's a license name change, long-time business. License name change, updates from board members, a preliminary budget discussion, primarily about scheduling. And then we're actually going to retire to executive session. As you know, the chief of police has an 18-month contract. And he reminded us late last week, said, we probably should start talking about my contract again. It's like, oh, okay. Good point. So thanks for that, Chief. We will be returning to open session only to adjourn. So again, the opening discussion about Chief of Police's work contract with the town. Okay, so the first order of business this morning is evening.
This morning?
It's that kind of
You
day.
were paying attention.
I was saying to David on the way up the stairs that it was one of those days where the afternoon got colder and colder and colder, and having worked outside, the cold finally set in, and as I started making dinner, I warmed up, I was ready for a nap. Just went boom. Anyway, I digress. Any opening comments from the boards? If not, we'll look at board members. If not, we'll look at minutes of January 4th, please. And we had a visit from the FCAT General Manager, Chris Collins. He left with some homework, and he's going to come back with another meeting.
I think they're a little thin on light on details. I don't know,
Exactly.
I'll make a motion on them.
Second.
Very good minutes.
There's a motion made and seconded on the quite detailed, voluminous minutes, which are great stuff. I actually applaud
Yes.
everybody who participates in them. Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That'd be 3-0.
Future generations will appreciate that when they're doing historical research.
Exactly right. Lord knows there's nothing to hide.
Yep.
Okay, board updates. I'll start with a meeting tomorrow that is a joint meeting. Let me get all the acronyms right. So we have the Sunderland Housing Committee. We have the 120 North Main Working Group. We have the Franklin Regional Council of Governments Housing Specialist, Alyssa. And then we have the Franklin Regional Housing Authority Director introducing herself to the group to talk about our affordable housing, the strides that the town has taken, both in acquisition of 120 North Main, as well as strategies that the new director may want to employ with its member towns. So we're kind of excited about that, a new director and new energy, and a very big group to talk about, how we've gotten to where we're at. The needs haven't changed. Remember that we have currently pending for review a housing generation plan in front of the DHCD. We're excited about that. And hopefully this will be a lead-off discussion about implementation steps, generating actual number of units, how to do it. So this is a working group, probably the biggest one in the housing discussion since I've been involved. So anyway, that's tomorrow night at 6 o'clock right here. Probably need a big room because it looks like it could be a bunch of people. And really that's the extent of it for me. David or Tom, updates?
The only update I have is we are working on, Beth, our solar consultant, is working on a letter to our representatives to articulate our concerns with Eversource and interconnects and time delays and things like that. So she's working on that. Otherwise, it's been a little quiet on the solar front. And just still working through the instructor aid and teachers contracts. Hopefully wrapping up the IA stuff maybe in early February. So.
And the IA is Union 38?
Yes, okay. Union 38 IAs and then Union 38 teachers.
Got it.
So.
Tom, anything?
First, there's going to be, I'll ask Chris, Deerfield's got a town meeting the 26th.
It's that Monday, yeah.
Now, is that going to be broadcast in Deerfield, or is it going to be broadcast all over?
It'll probably, we'll try and get it on Channel 12.
And I just asked because one of the articles is going to be taking up a citizen's petition to discuss the ambulance. So I would think it may have some.
We're definitely there, and we'll try and stream it on 12.
Okay. So that'll be an interesting conversation. I think they have to finish off some of this stuff. They got to get the right words. Everybody's hearing the same words. I think there's words being spoken, but I don't think they're necessarily all being understood the way they need to be. So that happens on Monday. For us, it is actually it's a busy week because we have a community preservation meeting on Wednesday. I thought the superintendent search committee
That's kicking off.
is supposed to be starting. And I guess the one thing, it'd have been interesting to have a, and I think Jonathan may have asked for it for a not every select board, but have some representative from the fiscal side of the town.
So when we have negotiations for contracts, of course, there's a municipal rep. Is that what you're driving at? There's not a municipal rep in the screening committee?
No, I'm not gonna say there's not a municipal rep, because, I mean, there are residents that are part of the
Right.
thing, so I'm not saying, I'm just saying more,
Financial side, like.
I think
makes sense.
sometimes, see, selectmen, finance committee people see things differently than, school committee. And we have different functions, I agree, we have different functions, but typically when we search for our town administrator, we ask the school to have because
Good point.
in my opinion, and I think the board's opinion, at least in the town of Sunderland, we think of our schools as part of our town. And they are, I mean, and again, we may not always agree, but it'd have been, I guess that's the only thing I would have suggested, is that, and again, not that we, and I guess I probably understand their reluctance, because then, do they have to have a member from each of the towns?
Right.
I would say probably not, but it would have been nice to have been asked.
Yeah, good point, actually.
So that starts, and why it's important also is, again, the schools are 60, depending on what town it is, are 60 to 70% of the budgets in each one of our communities. And that's one of the things that's interesting to me is the state in their budgets, they always try to equalize the values. They say every student's worth X amount of dollars. But if you look at when Margaret left to go to Rutland, it was a very interesting conversation with Rutland. Because we asked Margaret, well, what's one of Rutland's biggest things? She says, oh, the schools are taking a huge chunk of their education. Right. Well, Margaret, what is it? And it was something less than 50%.
Right.
Really? Yeah. That's unusual. Yeah.
Not really.
Less than 50%
It's not.
of the budget?
It's unusual if you compare it to Western Mass and the Cape. You know,
Yeah,
many
maybe
of the
not
Cape,
so much the Boston
many of the
area
Cape and some of the smaller towns on the North and South Shore. But if you go around in most of those other the state, it's kind of unusual that you're at 70% because they got so many other things going on.
Yeah, good point.
So I don't know if just because you're providing the same dollar amount, and I think if you go back to 1997 when the last lawsuit was filed, where you're supposed to try to keep every student the same education. I don't know if you say $100 for every student is a fair representation, because we don't have the tax base. Look at all the schools, not just Frontier, but look at all the schools. Row,
Right,
I mean,
all the way around
Mohawk.
Charlemont.
So it'd be interesting to have it would be interesting to come up sometime, and that when you talk about what are actual fair numbers, and again, I've never been a proponent of one size fits all.
It's that equitable versus equal kind of thing that we.
Good point.
I think it's a conversation that should be had, and I think maybe that's a conversation that we may want to start talking with our elected representatives about. and I think it's very easy sometimes just to set a value per student, but I don't necessarily that's the right way to do things.
Yeah, you look at it from a formula versus a spreadsheet, right? Formulaically, there's gotta be something that's equitable, not necessarily equal. But it can't all just be, which side of the ledger is it all on? Which, of course, we're going into that season.
Oh, yes, it's that time,
But, that said,
We'll have our
one thing
worksheets.
along those lines, Tom, this board in particular has never really been interested in the policy side of the schools and school committee. We've always been on the appoint good people, hire good people, they'll do good things.
Correct.
There's our process, with our annual budget process, but it's
We don't
different.
get into micromanagement.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not interested necessarily in that policy side.
Right.
And again, I just think it's a conversation that we may, and again, we haven't, and I just think about it because I listened to the governor, and the governor has already come out with kind of like his cuts to the budgets already, which are a little different this year because right now the projected numbers are ahead of what was anticipated. So he's kind of doing it in a different style, a different manner. He may rather have the money in his pocket versus anticipation. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how this progresses over this year and see what kind of monies are, when Cherry Sheet, actually his budget's supposed to be coming out shortly anyways, right?
27th, I believe.
The January 27th.
That early, yep, after our
You
meetings.
almost always get the tidbit nugget about, not so much the math, but, preservation of this and looking at that or challenging this. We've been through enough of those meetings in January. It's like,
I'm looking forward to budget information this year.
And again, I'd just be very interested to see what his administration, because this is his first, and I know the
Go
first,
around.
and I know the first time, and if we would go back to the first time Deval Patrick came up with his budget, it was a lot that the towns had to get used to, because the way he was doing things, where he was sending money and how he was sending money, it was like, Sherry, you probably remember that. I mean, like, whoa. So it'd be interesting.
Yep.
that's a really big point.
So this is actually a very big week for our town. We have a lot of things going on this weekend. Like Scott says, the housing. We have the isn't there
Planning board
a
forum.
planning board forum? And that's is that tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night at 7.
That's tomorrow night also. So there's a lot of things going on.
We'll be there for that too. Oh, good. That's for the North Main Street reconstruction review, and it's been a very good give and take between the engineering firm and the different inputs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely be there for that one, so, because that was at the last one.
So there's a lot of stuff going. There'll be a lot of stuff going on this week.
Good points. Good points. Anything else, Tom?
That's it.
Okay. Sherry, it's Monday.
It is. And I have confirmed dates for the budget presentations.
Good.
Yep. January 25th for police and fire. February 1st for the highway department. February 8th for the library. February 22nd for the school. And February 29th for administration. And then my only other question would be South County EMS. Tom, I wasn't sure if they would be coming in to present, or if that's something that you would be doing, or how that will unfold.
Worth a question. I mean,
Yep.
combination of annual update and budget presentation anticipated.
Yeah, we can bring in. We can have Zach come give us a presentation.
Okay. This will be the first time around that as well.
Sort of.
Well,
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah, it's like 2.5, but I understand.
It might be good in retrospect to do that, I think.
Put a
Good
face-
opportunity to get some factual information out there. And
Good point. Okay. Anything else, Sherry?
The public safety cooling replacement project, the notice of acceptance was received from the contractor, Royal Steam Heater. I also received the payment bond and the insurance certification, so the contract documents have been drawn up for your approval. And once the board signs, I'll send those to Royal Steam and we can get that project going. The wayfinding pilot project that I mentioned last week, that pilot project was awarded to Montague. But there might be more funding available in the future, so we'll keep that in mind. And
Was that part of the compact as well? Or is
that was that
an
Mass in Motion
Got it,
initiative from the
yeah.
FERCog.
Okay,
And we posted the library trustee vacancy as well. And that joint appointment is scheduled for February 8th, just before their budget presentation.
great. So the trustee gets right into the fire,
Yeah,
get appointed
That's
right to the
right.
first budget hearing.
Well, by the way, probably shouldn't mention that until after somebody gets
Exactly.
appointed.
Exactly.
and I'll also be updating the senior tax work-off program to reflect the new
Oh, yes.
minimum wage rate and
Oh, smart.
the reduction in the hours for the next meeting.
Okay,
That's
well,
about
thanks
it.
so much. Okay, we've got a license in front of us, long-standing business certificate, a slight name change. Want to read that, David?
Yeah. Roy's Service Station, well, it's actually currently Roy's Automotive. And they are changing to Roy's Service Station.
Well, if I could, I did talk to Mr. Leclerc. Basically, everything, all of his documentation was Roy's Service Station, except for his Class 2,
Ah, okay.
which was Roy's Automotive.
Or is bringing it all online, basically.
But, yeah, his financial people tell him he really should have one name on everything,
No,
so.
that makes
That
sense.
makes sense, yeah. No?
So he just wanted to switch it from Roy's Service. And so he had to update his DBA anyway, so
Perfect
he should
time.
be all set.
Good. Okay, so we have a motion, accept the change and sign accordingly?
Motion.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Again, this is granted a business certificate, very simple, name change. And as Tom explained, keeping it all under one umbrella, one name. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That'd be 3-0, please. Okay, our next meeting is going to be, well, again, tomorrow, there's a lot going on here. We are our next meeting, of course, our office is closed on the 18th. So our next meeting is going to be the 25th, and that is going to be our return from the MMA workshop. So we'll be both tired and gabby. We'll have a lot of things to bring forward. But those have always been opportunities to talk with legislators, people in the administration, go to some great workshops. But as you were saying earlier about the financial pieces, you know, when it is the Secretary of Administration and Finance doing the presentation, or
Right,
it
that's
is
good.
the head of DHCD, it's such a rare occasion to have that access. And, you know, a lot of opportunity to network with other elected officials.
It's a lot of good nuts and bolts information.
Yeah, we come back with a ton. So again, we're back here on the 25th. Is there anything else for tonight?
Just budget.
Yep.
Budget will be this is our first with Sherry, so I'm sure she's gonna put all the numbers together in a spreadsheet, so
We're doing that now,
we can take a look at what we have anticipated. But I did see that the schools had given Deerfield a preliminary, and it was a 3.6
That was, yeah,
for the elementary school.
right.
So that was for Deerfield, so we'll see.
And we've been, it'll be interesting to see how that, not just the base operating costs, but the other kinds of inputs. Are there
Right.
requirements? Are we hiring? Are there retirings? But, you know, all the kind of Ouija board of the inputs to the budget. But those base costs, if that's a kind of escalation, that would be an area of concern.
Right.
As you said, Tom. And we'll be starting with our revenue forecasting. That's an important component.
Well, and again, it depends what the governor says.
Right.
His budget's is a big thing, because, I mean, a sizable portion of all our budgets are predicated on what we're getting from the state, so.
That raise a really good point. Okay, so we're on for the 25th. We are going to go to executive session. We are going to talk with the chief of police about his contract. Again, he is on an 18-month contract. We're opening up the contract negotiation with him. And to do that, I'd like to entertain a motion to enter executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30, Section 21, Paragraph 2. And this is to conduct strategy session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. That said, we'll be returning to open session only to adjourn. And this, again, is our very first meeting on what is a renewal. So usually it's the kind of discussion about term and beginnings, and it's not any nitty-gritty. It's the beginning.
Motion.
Second.
There's a motion made in second. This will be roll call vote.
Aye.
That'd be aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris. Again, we're returning to open session only to adjourn. We'll go see the chief and call us out of this session here at
6:50.
Sorry, 6:50. Oh, it's close. 6:50. Thank you so very much.